Guess what? Tartaria was a place where we lived in harmony with nature and peace reigned. However, people became envious of peace that we had. Therefore, there's a list of people that we think may have killed Tartaria. This list was given to me by the author of Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids. Here are the details. Adam Weishaupt, founder of the Illuminati, believed the divine spark in man could be engineered, controlled, and weaponized. To him, Tartaria represented chaos, not because it was disorderly, but because it was uncontrollable. He saw a society not bound by centralized rule, not seduced by the false light of enlightenment, but guided by an older order. This affronted his vision of the new world where men would be liberated from religion only to be enslaved by reason. And so he began weaving a network of thinkers and agents whose goal was not progress but replacement, to erase the memory of the divine past and crown man, or rather a chosen few, as gods. Mayor Amsel Rothschild recognized the impossibility of financial dominance over a civilization like Tartaria. It used no fiat currency, required no debt-based institutions, and found no value in centralized wealth. Such a system could not be colonized through banks. To Rothschild, Tartaria was the last major obstacle to a planetary grid of finance, where every revolution, every crown, and every church would bleed interest. To destroy it, he poured funds into wars, explorations, and the silent rewriting of history, a campaign not just of conquest, but of obfuscation. King George III, outwardly a monarch clinging to colonial holdings, was in truth a pawn and player alike in this quiet war. Under his reign, mysterious American structures were dismissed as indigenous or colonial, and ancient star forts were recast as recent military installations. He did not need to understand the deeper truths, only to crush any anomaly that didn't fit the narrative of empire. His wars, most notably the one lost in the Americas, were also campaigns to bury the old world under new flags. Catherine the Great, reigning over what was once Tartarian heartlands, played a more insidious role. She sponsored academies to rewrite Russian history, aligned herself with Enlightenment philosophers, and presided over territorial expansions that conveniently discovered and then erased evidence of prior civilizations. Her rule was not only physical domination, it was epistemological warfare. She knew that to rule truly, she must replace memory itself. Stanislaw Czerniewicz, Jesuit custodian of forbidden knowledge, moved silently through the spiritual corridors of Europe. When the Jesuits were officially suppressed, he and others moved underground, taking with them ancient maps, records, and symbols. While some believe the Jesuits preserved sacred truth, others claim that Czerniewicz helped filter, edit, and contain that truth, destroying what could not be controlled and hoarding the rest for the coming system. The Jesuit vaults became black holes where Tartarian scrolls and etheric blueprints vanished forever. Sir Francis Dashwood, hidden behind layers of libertine excesses and aristocratic blasphemy, presided over the Hellfire Club not as a hedonist, but as an occult gatekeeper. Within caves and hidden lodges, ancient rites were inverted, sacred geometry was repurposed, and rituals once used for alignment were redirected towards domination. Tartaria once channeled natural power, and Dashwood and his ilk sought to harness it by inversion, turning temples into batteries and cities into ritual grids. Voltaire, the philosopher, wore the mask of reason but played a deeper game. While publicly advocating for liberation, he was instrumental in flooding the intellectual world with ideas that disenchanted reality. By convincing generations to see myth, spirit, and ether as superstition, he helped close the very eyes that might recognize Tartaria's fingerprints on the world. His writings, copied and canonized, became the cultural acid that dissolved memory. Benjamin Franklin, far from just a diplomat and inventor, functioned as a liaison between old and new worlds, bringing Masonic and occult knowledge across the Atlantic. His rumored involvement in secret societies and the remains found beneath his home point towards darker allegiances. He may have understood Tartaria's secret more than most and chosen to silence them, folding them into a new Masonic republic designed to stimulate freedom while feeding the same global machine. Finally, Pope Clement XIV, the religious gatekeeper, moved his chess piece by suppressing the Jesuits, but only on the surface. In truth, his papacy may have been part of a greater reorganization of knowledge. The Church, long accused of hiding ancient truths beneath the Vatican, played its part by canonizing a false timeline and burning any remnant of civilizations that defied the biblical narrative. Clement's actions ensured that Tartaria's spiritual legacy would be stricken from the sacred record and replaced with doctrines designed not to elevate but to pacify. Together, these 9 were not merely politicians, bankers, thinkers, or priests. They were midwives of an age of deception, agents of what prophecy called Satan's little season, a time when truth would be trampled, when history itself would be rewritten, and when the world would be prepared for a new order. Not of nations, not of peoples, but of systems, of grids, of dominion masked as progress. And the people of Tartaria? They were either destroyed in cataclysms, hunted and re-educated, or locked away in asylums, labeled mad for speaking of the world that once was. The mud floods, the orphan trains, the phantom wars, they were not random tragedies, but elements of the great erasure. And in the void that followed, the architects stepped in, not as saviors, but as jailers of a world that no longer remembered it had once been free. This is by Guy Anderson from the Tesla and Cabbage Patch Kids book.